Okay, it is 6:30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. All right, so first is the approval of the agenda, and we do want to talk about moving the, like, number 10, 11, and 12.
10 and 11.
Just 10 and 11. Because we have closed session today. So we want to move that at the end of the meeting and then go into closed session, if that's okay with everyone.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion to move items 10 and 11 to after old business and approve the agenda after that.
As amended.
As amended, yes.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Does that work? Because don't you have to have a record in the minutes of ending the closed session?
You still will.
You still will.
There's
Still
still gonna
will,
be, there's
okay.
still gonna be an adjournment afterwards.
Mhm.
That way
Okay,
we can adjourn
okay.
from closed session. Amy can leave, they can leave.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
Good question. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to number 3, the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll
Give
second.
me a second.
I'll second.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh,
Any discussion?
Don't mind my scribbles.
Okay. You have to understand, I'm a teacher, so I like watch students all the time. Like,
you look at my writing, you'll do that.
No, I'm just
We'll wait
waiting
time.
for that wait time, like, before I move on, is everybody all good, right? So, it's just 20 years of a habit, sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So now we go on to the financial report? Okay. So,
That's Joe.
you're up.
So I did submit last minute and amended balances of the first page because the original report did not have updated numbers for September. So the new one, which was at your seats when you came in.
That's the one.
Yeah, that one is updated. And then as for the second page, it was pretty basic, just the September park maintenance for the Patrons Park Fund. And there was a donation in memoria of James Crendel, and then just the family night for Janiyah Taylor, and Packers night with Jim Rice, and then interest income.
Okay, that's everything?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion to accept that? Oh, we don't have to?
No.
Any discussion? Anything else? All right, then we're gonna move on. Public commentary.
Nothing from the gallery.
I was really hoping for something on my watch here, Brad. Okay, number 6, library director's report.
Okay. I did have a follow-up meeting with Jay on the infrastructure memo that I did send out. I met with him and Deb as far as the library. If the city of West Bend needs to be involved for funding a project, we need to go and talk to them, which makes sense, obviously. And you know, the process we use right now of building maintenance being our first line of defense is correct and proper. And then we bring in professionals as needed and get estimates and the like. So then if funding is needed from the city of West Bend, we would go and have conversations with them to see what they can fund. And then either this project would be just automatically fixed and dealt with, or it would be dealt with and mended until we can do a CIP, which is a capital improvement project. So that's kind of the process. We had a good discussion about that, and I feel comfortable going to the city and asking if need be. I think once we look at the budget and look at what the expense would be, we can make a better determination whether or not the library would cover it themselves, which is the faster route, I'll be honest with you, than going to have to deal with city administration and go through that process as well. So, that's kind of where we came from. Yes?
So I'd be curious to have a little bit more specifics on, is there a certain price threshold? Is it just certain items that's maintenance versus, real capital improvement? Because the way I see it is if the city, take me out of it, but if the city is acting as the landlord of the building, right, to take care of it, and the library entity is a tenant inside, then that relationship means that the city has a responsibility to, keep up with the building.
Yes.
But we're kind of in this weird position where we're kind of doing a little bit of both. So I'd like to see that, what those
Okay.
details are, and
Sure.
probably written down,
Mhm.
so that not only we understand, but directors and administration after us
Right.
understand that
Right,
agreement too.
yeah. I think that needs to be fleshed out a little bit more. I just wanted to make sure the process I was going through
Yep.
administratively was of sound mind, and we were doing things as we should be doing them, that I wasn't stepping on anybody's toes and everything, so, yeah, that's a good idea.
Joanne?
When you look at the maintenance costs that the library has covered over the past a couple of years, like you listed earlier for
Correct.
us,
Yes.
were there any things in there that you would have handled differently, or that we ought to have handled differently as a result of your discussion?
Possibly, I'm not exactly sure.
Can you talk about that a little bit more, like?
I think I would have, personally, I think I would have gone to them more for the elevator,
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that
because
seems-
it wasn't a dire emergency where it was like, our sprinkler system needed to be repaired. We were, that was really an emergency because we were having so many leaks, it was not good. But the elevator, we have 2 elevators,
Right, sure.
so that could have
That could've been
maybe,
earmarked as a capital improvement
it
project.
could have,
shared
it
funding.
could have.
Yeah.
That's one thing that, looking back, I probably could have done that.
Okay, I guess I'm having a little bit of trouble with the idea of a capital improvement project and the time lag that's associated with that. I mean, at my house, if the furnace were to go out today, it's gonna be a capital improvement project, but it can't
Right.
wait very long. So,
Right.
so what about those urgent things
Yeah.
that would be in that category, just because,
That's where we would have
Of the
immediate
timeline.
conversations,
okay.
and we would figure out if we could, share the funding
Right,
if need be,
right,
or if this is something the city needs to handle.
right,
And
yeah.
I'm
I'm-
sorry, go.
Yeah, I'm with Chris. I'd really like to see these kinds of things written down, because, the people are, the people are all the same, but the names change every couple of
Mhm.
years.
Yeah.
and
The
so it
positions
would
are
help
the
to have
same,
that
yeah.
record.
Right.
Yeah, it might be nice to have an MOU between the library and, city administration.
And I think Furnace is a good example. So down to the village for the complex that we own, we know that we have 12 furnaces within our complex. They are all gonna have to be replaced one day, and we have a plan for that, when that's gonna be replaced. But we can't control anything. They all could die tomorrow, right? And so that's when emergency funding would happen. But that
Correct.
doesn't mean that we don't already have that built into our
Plans,
capital
yeah.
improvement plan.
Correct.
Which I would like to think that the city would,
Yeah,
somewhere down the line in their capital
Yeah.
improvement plan.
yeah.
Was the process that you talked with them about the same process that you have been following? Or was it kind of like a aha moment, like we,
It was a little bit of an aha moment because before I didn't realize that we should be going to the city for funding for
Okay.
that. I know we've had quite a bit of fund balance, and I think they see that as money that we can spend. It's taxpayer money,
right?
and they see that as what needs to be spent first. So, I guess that's how I always saw it, that we had this funding there, so it's taxpayer money, it needs to go toward the building, toward different things in the building, so, yeah, it was a good conversation.
So in the future,
Mhm.
if there was an emergency like Joanne brought up, you would contact them
Immediately.
and let us obviously know like you normally do.
Mhm.
And then they would give you a turnaround time, like they wouldn't make us wait, would they?
It would probably one of those things that we would have, the library would have to pay for first to just take care of it.
Okay.
And then work back around like your
Reimbursement.
furnace
Yeah.
died, because
Okay.
the city was saving money for their portion of the furnace, it just wasn't for 10 years, right?
Sure,
That
Okay.
kind of thinking.
Yeah.
okay,
So,
got it,
Well,
okay,
again, those are conversations that need to be
Okay.
had, depending on the project and what
good deal,
we can plan for and what's immediate need.
yeah,
So you're gonna continue working with Jay?
Yes,
okay,
okay.
great.
I'm happy to report the sprinkler system pipes have been replaced for the 2 projects that we had approved. We are just waiting for the sprinkler heads to be manufactured and come in. That should take they're estimating 3 weeks because they're all special made. So, and hopefully we'll be able to complete that project by the end of the year at the latest. I'm hoping before that, way before that, but. They said as soon as they come in, it would take about 2 to 3 days to install them, so. And, the public computers are in, Brad has been working diligently on them, and they will be swapped out once the sprinkler system gets done, because we don't want anything to fall in case it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Good choice.
So, we're holding off on putting those out until that project is complete.
Where do the old ones go?
Mhm.
Where do the old computers go?
We will be swapping out different machines for OPACs and other smaller items. We do a rundown of what we have, and then those machines get recycled.
Got it,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep. We had, oh yeah, Washington County, the library services study, the librarians are, continuing to work within the county to look at different solutions for the Joint Library Act 420 discussion that's happening countywide, as we had the presentation last month. We are meeting weekly now to brainstorm and research solutions, and we'll give a recommendation to the county administrative committee in May. So we're gonna come up with a full report of different ideas, brainstorming ideas and possible solutions, plans of attack on how we want to deal with this. So we're working on it. And then the art donation, we received 2 pieces of art from Judith Moriarty, a West Bend resident, and we thank her for those 2 pieces. And they're part of our permanent collection upstairs. So if you take a look upstairs, there's 2 pieces of art on the south wall. One of them's by Charles Dwyer and the other one's by Bridget Griffith Evans, and they're both Wisconsin artists. Dwyer was born and raised in West Bend, so that's really cool that we got one of his pieces. Statistics review, you have them in your packet. We are up about 7,500 circs for the year so far, which is great. That's about a 2% increase from last year. Use of e-resources continues to skyrocket, as you can see in the stats. And we are still a net borrower for physical materials by about 700 this month. So people are using the library.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all I have.
Excellent. Next up is library board president's report.
She's not here.
Yep, not here, so she didn't say for me to say anything, so I think we're all good there. Old business, we've got the Monarch Library System update.
I really don't have much of an update, as you saw in my report, because we haven't had a meeting this month yet. WLA was last week, so we didn't have our regularly scheduled meeting. Our meeting this month is on Thursday. So if there's anything to update you from that, I will send it out in an email. Also, the only other thing I wanted to announce was the trustee event for the system is next Thursday evening, not this Thursday, but next Thursday. The RSVP is due tomorrow. So I did send out that announcement again. You just click on the announcement, it'll take you to an RSVP page, and then you can say yes or no. Okay? That's all I got for that.
Okay, then we've got the basement renovation.
Mhm. Okay, library basement renovation update. Nick Lemke is back. Yeah, so we have a little bit more of a leadership over at Parks and Rec. I'm glad he's back. I haven't been able to meet with him yet because he's just getting his feet back wet again. So we have been reviewing the plans, and At Your Place was blow-up part of the plan for the duck chase. And if you notice, if you put your paper like this is south. So, like this. Okay, so they want to put the duct where the big square is. Right in the middle of the page there. And that is in the middle of Children's. So we're gonna be talking to the architects about that, and see if there's a better place that we can put that ductwork. It is for the HVAC system, as far as I know, and I'm hoping that we can maybe put it against a wall or something like that, so it's a little more out of the way. Because right now it's like next to where circulation is over there, in the middle of the floor, so.
And this would need to clear all 3 levels really, right?
No, just two, just
Just
this
two of
level,
them?
just the first
Just
level,
this one?
because over on that side, it doesn't have a second floor,
Oh,
Above it.
Sure, yep,
Oh.
that makes sense.
I gotcha.
okay? That side doesn't have a second floor. But I just wanted you to be aware of that, that's, you know, something that we'll deal with. And,
Did it come with any explanation for why?
no,
they
we
would do
just
this?
discovered it in the plans, when we were reviewing the
And
plans.
the architect wouldn't have discovered this in the plans.
I don't know. I
It
would-
seems,
I think it probably
So
for
we need to
centrally.
have-
seems
We need to
That
have another
Yeah.
discussion with the architect about
Yeah.
that, for sure.
It's probably for energy efficiency and flow.
That's
It's
what
in
I
the
was
middle of
gonna
the room.
guess too.
But it would be, you know, running more duct through the ceilings and
More
things. but-
duct, yeah.
So that's.
But
probably-
even if they could move it over to the wall,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if they can do that or not, so.
If they can move it to the wall, it still would be much better than pushing it way over to the other
Right
side.
in the center of
Yeah.
the
Right.
area.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
also,
Yeah, that's-
also I've been talking to Jay about the project. He is, acting head of Parks and Rec, and he is asking for a financial commitment from the library board. So the time has come to look at that. I know we don't have a full board here, but, you know, is there, when we look at our fund balances, you know, and what we need to keep in emergency funding for the library,
Do you have a recommendation, otherwise I'll shoot?
you can shoot.
Okay, so, it looks like, so, you can correct me, so if you
Mhm.
look at all the fund balances, total cash investments is 646. right?
Correct.
And I know we've dedicated amounts to emergency funding, tech plans, strategic
Mhm.
planning. I've talked to Amy a little bit about if we wanna match how the city is operating as far as how much is set aside for emergency funding, their maximum is about 30% of your operating budget. So Amy and I talked about that, I mean,
Yeah.
that would put us at about 420 is how much we'd want in our
Yep.
emergency funding. So that would take a huge chunk of that 646, so I say,
Mhm.
put that aside. I still think you need to keep some funding in there for technology. So if we say 50 off of that, so I think we have a cushion of
Like
less than 200, so 150 maybe.
I was thinking 100 to 150.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, just to be safe,
To
Yeah.
start with.
to
Yeah.
start,
the total project cost is still at 600?
400.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant,
400. Total cost of the project is 400,000.
And were we-
What was Park and Rec's gonna put in? I know that number has seemed to fluctuate from the
That
beginning to the
number has
last.
fluctuated so much, I'm not sure what it is right now.
So I'm kinda at the point of, I don't mind having a conversation about dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Chris, we need to look at the emergency bucket and keeping that. What I'm struggling with is part of this is are we front loading because Park and Recs doesn't have enough to cover the initial build, and how are we gonna get this back?
Right.
Without some sort of a lease agreement of what that's going to look like, I struggle with picking a dollar amount at this point.
Okay.
In saying, no matter what, we'd be willing to put this minimum amount to it, and then be able to look at adding to that based
Right.
upon that
Yeah.
lease.
Yeah.
And that's where, and I had emailed Amy and I just said, why the urgency now when it sounds like we're not really sending bid paperwork out till February?
Yeah.
Right.
Just that timeline of, do we really have to come up with a dollar today?
Right.
Or is this just a bare minimum saying, no matter what, we'd give 100 or 150 or whatever that dollar
Right.
amount
Yeah.
is?
Sure.
That was my understanding, what our minimum would be at this point to keep the project moving forward.
I think it's important to do that, to give them a number,
Yeah.
and that sounds, what Decris proposed, sounds good, I think.
I see the 100K is us being conservative, and it's still 1/4 of the project. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
to put forward.
Yeah,
So I think that shows a concerted effort.
and it still gives us a bit of a cushion then.
Right.
Correct.
And where are we taking these funds from?
It would be a mix. It would be from fund balance, but right now it's split up between emergency and tech and library.
I think if we're gonna take it out of a line, which we don't have to, we can just make a commitment, we don't have to move anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But if we make a commitment to take it out of strategic planning,
Yeah.
50 out of each, or whatever you wanna say, or 75 out of one and 25 out of another.
So we don't have to make, so if we made a motion today, it would be, the motion made to commit $100,000 to the basement, to Park and Rec, West Bend Park and Rec Department, something like that? Is that what we're looking at?
To the basement
Basement
renovations.
renovation.
Right.
And what would happen if that all would fall through?
Right.
It'd stay where it was.
Okay.
We're making the commitment, we're not expending the funds right now.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
That's
Amy, is Park and Recs or the city or whoever else is funding the other, if we're gonna get, if let's say it is the 100,000, where is the rest of that commitment coming from? And is the goal to have that commitment figured out by February? And I know with Nick leaving and coming back and Jay filling in, we maybe don't have all of those answers. And maybe we'll meet as that small group again.
Yes,
But that
we
would be
do.
nice to outline of saying, okay, well, the library's gonna give X, this is what Park and Rec is gonna do or whatever else. To figure that out before
Sure.
February potentially?
Yes. And we are looking at outside funding sources as well,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, am I remembering correctly that at one of the meetings, they were wanting us to do maybe 3/4 of the project, right?
At one point, yes,
But that's not
but
necessarily
that
the case
necessarily the
now.
case.
Okay.
And I think part of that comes into, are we in essence, I don't know, it's like going to the bank and then we're
Right.
getting it back through that
Right,
lease
I know we've had
agreement
that discussion.
or anything
yeah.
else to make the
Yeah.
project happen, or what does that
Okay.
look like? But if we can nail down what these other funding sources are and commitments, that helps us decide on what we believe the appropriate lease would be in the future.
Correct.
Okay,
And speaking of, I have no problem if let's say they did come up with some agreement that we're getting paid back on, I'd be willing to put more up
Yeah.
front because I know I'm gonna get
Right.
paid
Yes.
back.
Definitely.
I
We just need that agreement,
100,000
yes.
is out of the
Yeah.
goodness of my heart,
Yeah.
50,000 is because I'm gonna get that money back.
Yes, well, and I
Right.
think that's part of it is
Yeah.
we believe that this is gonna help us, we make the
Right.
commitment, we could use this space potentially also.
Correct.
Things like that, it just comes into if they can't come up with it, and we're willing to say, okay, yeah, we'll kick in another 100,000, knowing that the first 5 or 8
Right.
years of the lease or whatever are X amount more
Right.
per square foot per
Right.
month.
Correct.
right, okay. That makes sense.
Combining this with having a MOU or better understanding on future building expenses, I think gives us a level of comfort
Mhm.
to move on this too. So I think the
Okay.
two of them are working together, and so
Mhm.
thanks for
Mhm.
taking care of that. It makes this part of it easier.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, moving on to the 2020.
Are we gonna commit?
Oh, do we wanna make a motion?
Motion, do we?
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
I guess, what are you looking for, Amy? Are you looking for a direction, or are you looking for a motion? Those are two different things.
Right.
Or what's the
And
city
do-
looking for, because I don't know.
Yeah.
And
I
do we
think-
have to put it into a restricted fund or something at this point?
No,
or-
no.
Because we could just say it's a consensus, and we all nodded our heads and say,
Sounds
yeah,
good.
yeah, you know.
Yeah,
Yep.
let's
At the
do.
minimum, 100,000, that's kind of our
Okay.
number. It's a
Okay.
number for you to go to and negotiate
Yeah,
with.
go to them with that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that the board has discussed $100,000.
Because we don't want to buy, I mean, for lack of a better term, we don't want to bind ourselves or
To
write
approve.
ourselves into a
Yeah.
number.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go, okay. We were in $100,000 at the,
Mhm.
okay.
That's the direction the board
Okay.
is looking at. Okay.
then we don't need to make a motion?
No.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the 2020 library operating budget.
Oh, the fun begins.
Yeah.
Okay, as you saw in my report, that the city did not grant us the additional funding of $20,643. So I started looking at the budgets, and I have two different scenarios, but with a caveat. And the first scenario looks at only a 2% raise, reducing continuing ed, reducing materials, and not having the self-checks. Okay? The second budget just reduces continuing ed and materials only. It keeps the raises at 2.5% and leaves the self-checks on. Okay? Now, I will say, at the meeting last week, was that last week? Yeah. Yeah.
So,
The city tax levy is looking to stay the same, correct, Chris? Yep. And they are looking to, the city administration was initially looking to raise the tax levy a little bit. But the mayor has requested that the city look at covering any shortfalls with potential carry forward money from this year. So Chris came to me with the idea that we could do the same. And do you want to go through it, or you want me to go through it?
Yeah, I gotta lay that here.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of the weekend, probably more time than I wanted to, on looking through our budgets, looking through last year's budget, looking through our fund finances. I think I've only looked at these maybe once, actually, clearly, and that was when I was president, so it was nice to look at these again. Just to look at, you know, where we were for our current budget and to see if there's any room in there anyway. So I went through, marked it up, asked a lot of questions of Amy, and I think the gist of it is there should be an estimated 30,000 net positive in salaries due to changes that happened during the year. And then a mix of anywhere from maybe 10 to 20,000 in savings from things like building maintenance, fuel, heating, water, and all that jazz. So potentially we have 50,000 will be positive from this year. So looking at the options that Amy provided for the two budgets, I would say adopting budget 2 with the caveat of, I think you had in there, was it the training line item?
Mm-hmm.
Keeping that the same, taking it all out of materials with the intention of, in April, when we get the audited numbers from the city and we find out what that net positive is, then we can use that to inject right into the materials budget for the percentage that we're trying to shoot for.
Do you really think that's going to happen, though? Do you
That's what
think-
I wanted to know too.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's why I went to Amy to
Okay.
ask.
Yeah.
We asked the same
I'm
thing.
not, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We don't know the dollar amount.
because I got a question from last week's meeting, and I even wrote it out, because I'm thinking about it after I was at the meeting at the Common Finance Committee, and it said, my question is, if the tax base has gone up in the city due to, let's say, increased construction of homes and businesses,
Sure, the value of the.
okay, value,
municipality,
then why
whatever.
is there no increase in library, in funding if we're getting more tax revenue in? I understand we're keeping the tax levy the same, but if there's an increased revenue generated by the increased tax base of all this new development, shouldn't that additional revenue that's generated by all that development be broken down in percentages across all the city departments.
I would say that the income, and I don't know the details, but the income coming in doesn't match the expense side for running the whole municipality, and I'm sure that's like that from department to department. I mean, that's what they would say. The other reason why we asked Jay to go back is the municipality can go back over 5 years, so we have 5 years of potential savings that happen. I mean, Amy, we're just looking at this 1 year
Yeah.
for us, but that's why the city itself didn't adjust it at that last meeting, and we asked Jay to go back. That's a separate question maybe than what you're
Kind of,
asking.
well, I would say if
Yeah.
for 2019 or 18, and we're having this development, all the car dealerships and all these other things, who are paying taxes, then the city's actually income is coming up through revenue by having more development in the city. So then why can't that extra revenue be distributed, I said, by percentage from park and rec to the library to fire and police, instead of the library and park and rec being held flat when there is more actually income coming into the city?
And do I understand correctly that the other departments are getting an increase?
That I
Some
don't
would
have.
be and some
Yeah.
might not be.
Yeah, I don't have those specifics in front of me.
Well, ours was held flat,
Right.
Right.
along with park and rec, and everybody else's went up.
Right,
Okay.
that's what I understood.
So again, the reasoning from administration is there was an injection of $40-some thousand in last year's budget from one-time county, that's
The county capital.
county capital
County capital
dollars.
went into
Yep.
paying off Act 420 and putting a little bit of extra in the circulation pot for the county funding. And I was able to do some things with
Yeah, I
that
was at the
last
meeting,
year.
yeah. But I was just, going forward, I just to see that there's us and maybe other departments that are not getting a piece of the pie as West Bend expands and grows.
And I don't know if there's really enough pie to give. I think the expenses still outweigh.
Yeah,
the
I
income
understand
that's
that, but I'm
coming
just
in.
saying,
Yeah.
it's
But I know
But
what
it's
you're,
not like the library's expenses aren't going up
Yeah.
as well, so I don't understand why.
so I had asked Amy about the timeline to verify about the dollars, because I can't remember last year, maybe I missed meetings or whenever.
Yeah.
And I
whenever it was
appreciate you going
explained.
through this, but I was thinking
Yeah.
about this since last week, we're going, it's like, I see the new car dealer, the Honda dealer, and I see some new homes when I'm out and things, and like, well, people are, even though, schools are going down and things like that, but I just think things are going up, the new hotel's gonna go up, all these other revenues and things, it's like, maybe you should get a 0.5% maybe in the 2021 budget, maybe the library and park and rec, well, maybe we can get a little more percent, because there's more income coming into the city.
I think if the tax rate, and I'm thinking with my admin hat on now, if the mill rate stayed the same
Mhm.
as the value went up,
Yeah.
then yes, we would
Yes.
have an increase. But that's not, at least under the mayor's leadership, that's not what we're doing. We're keeping it down, if not lower, as well as the municipality grows. So we're not really, we're getting more dollars, but it's not to the extent that it could possibly be if the rate just stayed the same as the value of the municipality grew. But anyway, back to the dollars. I guess, I wish, and again, I can't remember last year, and I don't know exactly what the timeline was, but I don't remember us having a conversation about this additional influx of dollars. And according to Amy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you got the information, you just built it into the budget, right, as you were doing it. I guess I would have liked to have seen, here's the 2019 budget. Oh, and by the way, we're getting this one-time influx of $40-some thousand. What would we like to do with it, and have the board have a conversation about that?
Okay.
It sounds like it was just thrown in to
Yeah.
kind of cover the holes, and
Kind of, yeah.
I don't know, I feel like we can't go back, but I feel like that's my frustration, is I wish we had a conversation about that at the time, and the board could have decided as a whole what to do with this one-time influx of cash, and not have just used it to balance a budget. I'd rather you have came to us and said, the budget isn't balanced, right, in 2019, we're in the negative, what do we do? And had a separate conversation about this
Okay.
influx of cash.
Okay.
Because now, it's hard for me to argue now from the city perspective, because they're saying, well, what do you do with that money? Well, I don't know.
You don't know.
We we didn't have that conversation.
Right.
So I don't know, that's a frustrating part for me,
Yeah.
because I don't know how to react to that, I don't know how to answer that. So, I guess that's it.
Okay.
That's valid.
Yeah.
So, there's two different budgets. I can also adjust
No, I don't,
anything.
I think we have to decide on one tonight.
Yep.
We don't, let's not go back and forth, let's
Right.
move forward.
Can you just go over maybe a little bit more specifics where that 30,000 in savings was from? What positions did that involve?
At some point, I had 3 or 4 positions open,
Okay.
so that kind of added up really quickly between salaries and fringe benefits. So,
So that won't go away. That was savings that's already occurred, right? So I think that's,
correct.
that we're gonna get. We've already seen the savings from that. So I think that right there solves the whole, if not, also maybe building maintenance. if you
Right.
know that, yeah.
And the other thing I did want to point out is we have spent quite a bit of money in fund balance this year for projects. So, you know, if we want to quote, kind of pay ourselves back in any way, that's something to consider too. So, I guess I just want you to be aware that, you know, if we wanted to put that money back into the emergency fund that we've spent, if the projects, you know, come under
If
or.
this money that Chris is talking about does occur.
Mhm. So there's some choices that need to be made there, but.
And just as a final takeaway, I did add 4 things as an addendum to Amy, and I said the same thing to Jay at the city, so it's all equitable here. But I did ask Amy for next year's budget to really try and calculate the budget based off of the city and county split per circulation. We keep talking about that, but it'd be interesting to see if you actually took the number and the funding that both the city and the county give, and you split it by their percentages, how does that pay for things, right? It's probably not, but that's why I'd be curious to see what that comes up to. The next part is talking about a new countywide agreement. I know that's in the works at the county level anyway, so just continue to push that so that it's clearly understood by all parties. We do have the county attorney and the city attorney sitting in the same room together hopefully soon to talk about the 50-50 capital split, so that we all have one definition that we can all understand. I talked about the library and administration continuing to improve their communications. I think Amy will admit that it's probably been lacking. I'd like to see both sides come to the table a little bit more. And then I mentioned about the emergency funding that I've already talked about. So I think those are all ways we can kind of move forward and hopefully get some answers later on. Yep.
Is that something you sent to?
I said to Deb, I CC'd Amy.
Okay.
Yep, and then this separate document.
It would be something,
Conversation with Jay.
it'd be nice if we could have some, would it be possible to have some of that information, so we all have it?
With like the action items or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
Could she have that copy to put in the minutes?
Sure.
Because you did say it, so.
I did. Yeah, so this is, I can give it to you after the meeting.
yeah, okay,
I didn't send this proposal to everybody because I didn't want to violate things.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Sure. What would be the timeline, Chris? Like, if we would adopt the second option, when would we know how much?
April.
April.
So that's when
April,
After
would
the
happen.
audit in March.
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, we have a rough idea. At the end of the year, we'll look at these same reports and we can see, oh yeah.
We
there's
can see
savings
about
here.
where we are before
Okay, but it wouldn't be official
correct,
until,
right.
So can you describe that process? So if we did have
process-
carryover, what would happen?
Right,
Yeah.
basically what would happen on this sheet that you have, so, where in Fund 21, there's a minus right now under fund balance, operating expense, that would be populated with a number,
okay.
okay? And that would be the carryover or the fund balance, the undesignated fund balance from the year before. Now, you'll notice that last year when we got the fund balance reports in the countywide, we didn't move anything, we just left it there. Okay, we could have moved it, but it just didn't happen. So, and that can be moved at any time. Okay? We won't know what the official fund balance was from last year until the audit is done in March. At March 30th, then we should get the numbers in April.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
My other question was, so seeing the savings that we potentially could have in utility costs, do you think there's any way to factor those costs into the budget, although be it conservatively, but in order for the actual budget to be a little bit less? You know what I'm saying? Because we see that we're not spending all the money this year, so can we?
I don't
carry
know
that
how
over?
to do that. You know, how to incorporate it into the budget, I guess.
Are you asking to actually reduce the budget beyond what it is now?
No, but trying to solve the hole in just strictly utilities, because under the utilities, like I said, you're anywhere from, we'll be under our utilities estimate, anywhere from 10 to 20,000. So can we use that to budget just more accurately in 2020?
So reduce the utilities and
Yeah, and we
fill
can
in
fill it in with materials.
resources,
whatever.
materials, yeah,
And
we
then
said we're
add
gonna
something
cut
else.
10,000
So,
out.
so do like
Shift
the
2,000 from
history,
one to
look
the
at
other.
it, yeah, since we did
Yeah,
get all
sure.
legal, so look at the history of the last 4 years and the actuals versus what we budgeted for and say, okay, I can lop $2,000 out of utilities, cause
Yeah,
we're
I just
averaging.
don't know because
Well, and we would also
the
have
utilities
to-
are going up next year too.
Right, well, that, and we'd also
Sure.
have to consider if we do this expansion, we're gonna be spending more on
Right.
utilities for the basement, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Forget what I said.
Well-
Go with the first thing I said.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chris, for looking,
It
I
would-
honestly
yeah,
haven't looked
it
at all
could
that
be-
either.
I mean, potentially it could have done something, but.
That would give me a headache, look at all that.
I've been looking at it too.
I greatly appreciate my new actual job, because
Mhm.
it's definitely helped me to understand this a little bit
Yeah.
more. And I've been on the board for almost 10 years, so
Yeah.
it's amazing to finally sit here and be like, oh, that's what these numbers mean.
Yeah.
So I guess if you're looking for a motion, I make a motion to adopt option 2, I want you to keep the amount of monies for training purposes.
Okay.
And instead just take the full amount that you're missing from materials. With the caveat that in April you reevaluate with audited numbers and bring it back to the board, and at that time the board would need to have a discussion about what to do with those undesignated funds.
So you're basically reducing the materials down to $139,000.
Whatever that
Mhm.
is. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, well, you're. we'll
I'll
have to
second
discuss
that.
it. Well, we have to,
She
You
has
have
to
to make a motion.
second.
Second it first,
Second it,
I'll
okay.
second it.
Chris made the motion and Joanne's gonna second.
okay,
Got that?
are we gonna discuss
And
it?
then discuss? Okay, any discussion?
What do you think of that? What would be more beneficial to you and the staff and to the,
I mean, if there's another
Yeah.
spot you'd rather cut it, I mean, I don't
No.
know.
I don't think there is any other spot we can cut it
Yeah.
at this point.
does that put us below where we need to be?
For materials?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But hypothetically, that would get corrected in
It
April.
could
that
possibly
point.
get corrected in April.
We've been below.
Yeah,
where
but I
we
mean,
need to be
even
for a
lower
long
than we
time.
should be, but,
Yeah.
okay.
Chris,
This
in that
guy just
scenario,
wanted-
does that require amended budget by us then?
I don't know, I was asking Amy that too.
I mean, I
It
think-
doesn't require that because you would make the motion to move the money.
To that,
To
at
that.
point. Because I'm even thinking of, even if we wouldn't make a huge adjustment in utilities, but all of a sudden we're tracking and we're halfway through the year, 3/4 through the year, and we're saying, we're gonna spend X amount, and we're still, 50%, we've only expended 50% at that point, do we have the ability to shift and say, we're gonna take X and move it
I
here at
believe
that
you
amended
can,
budget
yes,
process?
yes.
I mean, especially if we're tracking those things and watching
Mhm.
it and we're concerned, but yet we know we may be a little over there.
Mhm.
If you're only at 50% and you're 3/4 of the way through the year, barring some weird climate change
Yeah.
happening,
Right.
that's the ability to shift some money and still expend that for those resources at that point too.
What I did down at the village is we reevaluate our line items every quarter. So after the quarter, we look at where we're at, and if we know that we can move dollars around from this line item to this line item, we pass resolutions, I guess is what it's called. But we're constantly trying to look at that to see where the dollars are going, see if there's savings somewhere. So that way by the end of the year, we're not like, oh crap, we spent $40,000 more than we had,
Well, and I even think in that scenario, when you talk about salaries, and all of a sudden if you have those unfilled positions and you aren't expending that time,
Yeah.
to be able to shift that and fill that gap in materials or other things that may be needed, that might be something we wanna look at as a
You may
regular
wanna look at that at
process.
6 months or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So budget 2 has no raises or anything?
It does have raises as
Yeah.
2.5.
Okay, well, that's what I thought, when I
Yep.
looked at the other, I'm just looking at this note here, okay. so
Yeah,
I-
it wasn't any reduction.
Okay. The other sheet somewhere, okay.
I just keep coming back to, I get nervous with the budget materials, just because that is one of our strategic planning goals. And we discussed that was one thing that kept coming up as a necessity, and we're right back to like cutting it again. With the potential of getting that back, but,
Like I said, I'm pretty optimistic. These,
Mhm.
especially the
I am too.
salary line item, you already have seen the savings. We know that we're gonna end.
Right,
That
unless
money,
we hire
right.
someone extra,
Yeah.
it's not like,
And that we're not going to do
yeah,
that.
then that money's there already.
So you're pretty much passing a budget that fulfills what we want. Although we cannot bind a future board to change their mind in April.
right, got it.
Right.
Okay,
So no
any other
reason.
discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Okay.
Where are we?
Oh, we have
Number
to move 10.
Yep, moving 10 and 11 out.
Okay, got it.
So just announce the next one.
So our
So I
next
can
regular
keep this.
meeting date will be November
Or
19th.
just send it to me, yeah, it's fine, I'm not gonna get.
This explains the motion and this is
Just send it to me.
Assigned tax review, I don't think we have any, do we?
I'm gonna just make that small change in the budget and call it approved.
Okay,
Then you follow up on the elevator though, staff, you follow up on the.
Yep, the MOU,
Memorandum, yeah.
What does that stand for?
Memorandum of
memorandum of
understanding.
understanding.
Okay.
got it. Good question.
I was gonna look it up when I got home. I was gonna type in,
Okay, so we are going to,
we need a motion.
oh, sorry, we're making the motion. Does somebody wanna make a
Read
motion?
it.
Yeah,
To adjourn into closed session pursuant to state statute section 19.85 1C, you guys see 1C. Considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. And we're discussing the library director evaluation.
I'll first.
Second.
And you need a roll call vote.
Oh, yes, we need a roll call vote. So do I have to say everybody's name?
Mm-hmm.
You can have your secretary say it.
Oh, I have to say everybody's name? Oh. Karen Wackels, yes.
Jenkins, yes.
Warnier, yes.
Harder, yes.
Klein, yes.
Legate, yes.
Tortomasi, yes.
Good.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Or
Seven-
no.
No, not
No,
yet,
no,
sorry. Sorry, postponed. No,
No.
not a
No.
postponed.
But we
Moved
are
in-
gonna,
Meeting
Moved
moved into
into-
closed session.
yes, we
Closed
are gonna
session.
adjourn out of
Yes.
closed session.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right.